Hi guys, hello, Wagwan. Welcome back to another episode of Redirection with Terri-Karelle. I'm your host, Terri-Karelle. No, I don't know about y'all, but every episode, every single week, it's giving. It's giving greatness, it's giving inspiration, it's giving motivation, it's giving empowerment. But more importantly, it's giving truth. I think that's all we ever want to do here on this particular show. Just speak to people and ask them how life has been, how life has treated them, and even when there have been challenges and hurdles and ups and downs, how have we managed to navigate and even embrace and appreciate the redirection. If this is your very first time tuning in, very nice to have you. Come on in, make yourself comfortable. You can find all things Redirection with Terri-Karelle at redirectionpodcast.com. Yeah, we step up in our life, new website and these things. And if you're sharing the episodes across your social media platforms, please don't forget to use the hashtag TK Redirection. Now, the podcast is brought to you by MasterCard in association with Heineken 00 and Toyota Jamaica. Naturally, you think of MasterCard, you think about the priceless moments that even when life gets tough, there are always these moments that take our breath away and just reminds us of how priceless life is. And then there's Heineken 00 that reminds us, now we can, now you can. And Toyota Jamaica, changing Jamaica every single day, one hybrid at a time. And I should know because I actually drive a very beautiful red kitted RAV4 hybrid by the name of Scarlett. Love her to death. But not only these three partners, we have so many other partners who help to make season 3 the success that it has been so far. So I just want to shout out Commercial Concepts for being my production partner. Thank you for the fantastic work. Every single week, people tell me that the production value goes up every single year, and we hope that we can continue to do so. Spaces, what more can I say? I'm looking forward to what the space will look like for season 4. We got plans, but thank you for creating such a beautiful space. To Go Shore Couriers, my courier of choice. Every time I order my packages get to me in less than like 5 days. If you haven't signed up yet, you might want to go and do that. Brescia, being purposeful and prepared, the luxury leather backpacks. Every time we take a flight, everybody upon the flight have Brescia, and each of my guests who walks away actually gets a lovely personalized Brescia pouch. Can't forget about self-care, especially when you're dealing with life. And so Beauty Brands by MDS, thank you for partnering last year as well as this year. Thank you for the Tree Hut gifts, all the goodness, the premium body and skin line brands. And First Heritage Cooperative Credit Union, thank you so very much for reminding us that no matter how tough life gets, we have to make good, solid financial decisions. Every mickle, make a muckle. So if you haven't already opened your account, please go ahead and do so. And last but not least, drum roll, Tony Aiken. She's somewhere down here doing her thing. Thank you so very much for being the awesome bridge between ourselves and the deaf community. So all of that being said, who is coming to the Redirection seat? It is our first international, Caribbean guest outside of Jamaica and outside of the Jamaican diaspora. So happy to have him representing the Twin Islands, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. When you think about this man, it kind of makes you wonder, if you're given a second life in chance, what would you do with it? From bad man to broadcaster, from rebellious to restored, from always enraged to empowered. His story is so powerful. I'm talking about Ken Simmons, and he takes a seat right here on Redirection with Terri-Karelle. The gentleman, Ken Simmons, from the land of soca, steel pan, and doubles.
Ah, boy, I like how you say doubles.
The
Good doubles.
The good doubles.
Good doubles. No, being from Trinidad and Tobago, not all doubles are created equal. But I'm your friend. I will direct you to ways to get some good doubles.
Good doubles.
Good doubles.
Thank you so very much for agreeing to be in the Redirection seat. How you do?
I am doing well. It is my honor to sit at the seat. I'm happy to be in your company. I'm happy to be here. And I'm looking forward to our dialogue our conversation.
Absolutely. And it's just the accent,
Reasoning.
the reasoning.
Reasoning.
We're going lime and we're going to reason. Now, for
Yeah.
persons who don't know, I met you about 2 years ago in Trinidad and Tobago. Went over there to launch my book, My Brand Compass. And I had my interview, which is a morning interview at Guardian Media, and it would be similar to our Smile Jamaica or our CVM at Sunrise. And the former general manager who was there, Carrie-Anne, says, by the way, we have some radio programs, we have the radio personalities. Let us see if we can just hop in and maybe speak to them for 3 minutes. And I did that for maybe 3. You were the third and the last radio personality. I know you were on your program, you were doing your thing. We just kind of came in. You didn't know me, I didn't know you. And maybe we spoke for about 8 minutes or so.
Yeah, about, yes.
But the dialogue was so deep. I think there was just something that was so sweet. You were very interested in what I was saying, but more than the book, it was what we had to talk about. And I think in that moment, I was like, I think there is something more about you that I want to find out. And so I had you down on my list of persons who, when we started back the podcast, I would want to have you here.
Wow, okay, look at that.
So if people don't know you, you are the gentleman,
Yes.
Ken Simmons, always put together, sharper than a razor, event host, radio personality, speaker, motivational especially.
Yes, I am.
The question I have for you is this where you even saw yourself?
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. Of course, for those who are viewing who know of my past, there are many others who don't know. I grew up in the hills of Prisgalands, Labantil. Now, that area in Trinidad is known for its crime and criminal activity. Even though that there are a lot of good people who have come out of the community, as human beings, we tend to focus on the negative.
Correct.
So the community has had a stigma. Now, my father is one of the icons in radio broadcasting, Phil the Trill from Labantil. So I came from that good stock. Now, within that area, there was the perception that we had money because we came from a hotspot, as it were, a crime-riddled area. And your father is a popular radio announcer.
Gotta be rich.
So, so I was not respected or viewed as equals among my peers there. So I had to earn that respect. So in an attempt to try to fit in, I started to rebel against my parents.
About how old were you?
Could be about 11, 12, thereabout. And they saw a shift in my behavior growing up in Labantil. At 13 years old, I lost my virginity to a woman that was 20-something years old. It introduced me to manhood at a time that I was not ready. And what it caused me to do is to make me feel, well, I'm my own man. It caused me to think differently towards the opposite sex.
Did you even know at that time? And I mean, it's very different when masculinity is defined as one thing in society, and then we have our own subcultures in our inner city areas. Did you realize at that time, or only now that you're older, that you were taken advantage of?
Well, yes. At that time, obviously, you're just experiencing life. You know, this is something new. But in retrospect, it's like, I was taken advantage of. And it affected how I viewed women and how I related to women.
Yeah.
So all of that happened, and, thinking that I was a man, nobody can tell me anything. So there were instances where, where my father and I, we didn't see eye to eye.
Heads.
In one particular incident, it got so terrible that I ran into the kitchen, drew a cutlass, attacked him, swung the cutlass to him. Thankfully, it was on the dull side. It fractured his hand, but he knocked me out cold.
At that moment, do you understand that you are out of control? Or at this moment, it is what it is?
Well, looking back at it now, yes, that's what happened. But at the time, I didn't recognize that. I didn't know that. I was just living. I just wanted to be accepted. I was trying to find myself, and I was allowing my peers in my environment to try to dictate my worth. So I had to be tough. I had to be rebellious. I had to be a bad boy, a rebel.
Man.
Yeah, bad man. So with that, I remember when I got up, my mother was crying, and that incident, it drove them to say, listen, we need to move out of the area, because if he continues on that vein, he will end up dead. So we moved out to the area. We went further east of the island to live. And when you're in an environment for so long and you've been cultured in a particular way, it's already in you. So automatically I attracted the same type of company where I went.
So at this point in time, it really didn't matter what environment you were now transplanted in, because now you are taking the behavior anywhere you were. My question to you, as you were taking on this persona, because you're trying to discover yourself while you were still living at home, were your peers accepting you? Like, did you feel accepted, or did you feel like you still had to prove more?
Well, it's funny you said that, because the things that I did, it wasn't enough. And I think that is the deception. Even young people, trying to find themselves, and you find a lot of young people who are angry, and you want to know why they're angry, and older ones, they're saying, you must do this and you must do that, is that they're trying to find themselves. They're getting a lot of instructions, but very few exemplars to show them the way. So sometimes we have a minuscule understanding of what happens to a delinquent or some child or youngster who is going wayward. And I can tell you is that they're trying to find themselves. So that anger that is being expressed, they're doing things that you don't know where it's coming from. It's from a point of trying to find themselves.
So even though you move your environment, you realize the bad boy is still there.
It was still there. And I linked up with a gentleman who really groomed me into the bad boy life. He taught me how to make 12 and 16 gauge homemade shotguns. At that time, the borders.
How old are you at this point?
That was about 14, 15.
You're a baby.
Yeah, I was still going to school at the time. And he carried me on my first robbery. I was taken to do drug trafficking from Ikakas, that's far end of the island, to Chaguaramas, up to the east. So I was a pawn. My name back then, a nickname they gave me was Tizik. And I got that name because I had a ras, believe it or not.
You had a bald head. As a bald head, now you're telling us that you had a ras.
I was a dready. So I was a dready for a time, and I cut my hair. And one of the youth men in the area, he said, but you was never a ras boy, you was a rastitute. And I got offended. So that same done to him, I ran inside his home, took up a 38 revolver, and I pointed at him, and I started squeezing and run down the track, squeezing the gun, packs, but it not going off. So when I came back now, the fella ran. When I came back now, the same gentleman who groomed me into the bad boy life, and another gentleman was there. They take the 38 revolver and say, "What's wrong with you, boy? You're Tizik?" And they open the spin barrel, they take out the shots and they put it back in. They squeeze it once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th occasion, the gun went off. Terry, when I think about it, when I express and tell people that story, I always remember that God preserved me at that point in time, because I could have been on a manslaughter, a murder trial for talk and for foolishness.
If you just squeezed one more.
Yeah. And I said, God, you had something greater in store for me.
So even though we understand the desire to prove and to be accepted and to be embraced by these persons who you think are the stars,
right.
They're aspirational at this point, even for those of us who don't understand why. Was there ever any fear, even regret, in the moments when you're now being introduced to, for example, robbery for the first time?
Right.
Is there any fear or idea of the absolute peril that your life is in, and that this kind of life either leads usually one or two places, death or prison?
Right. At the time, you would feel those butterflies, but it was not an option not to do it, because you want your name to call, as they say. You want to earn your keep. You want to earn your respect. So you feel the fear and you do it anyway. And hence the reason I got the nickname Tizik, because I was very hasty. So they used to call me Tizik.
Trigger happy.
The youngest in the group, but very hasty. And when we would go on robberies, they would give me the tree line, the cutlass, because back then, of course, I know it's different now.
Yeah.
But they would have one or two gunmen, and the tree line man is the one who would set the tone and the order. Planners, people, make sure that you move here, you move there. So they would give me the tree line. So that's the kind of energy that I operated back then. And for a time, of course, my name started to call, wearing big jewelry. And I did not finish school because I got expelled from school.
Well, I was about to ask you, because I mean, you can't serve two masters.
No.
And if you're putting all your time and your energy and your effort into a particular thing, I was literally going to ask you, well, what about the performance at school? Were you even attending classes?
I was.
What about your parents?
I was.
Do they know? Are they still trying to?
Yeah, well,
Save their son?
they felt it was a hopeless case. They tried the church. They asked individuals who are known to speak with me, but I was not listening. So for me, in that time, what I went through, it helped me to deal with the younger people now, because sometimes we try to tell them what to do and how to do, but they're not listening. They're not listening. You have to reach them where they are. And I was going to school, yes, but I was so full of anger and rage, not only myself, but others too, in the school that I attended to, Belmont Intermediate at the time. There's a class that they put a few students in that the teachers refused to teach because of our behavior. And I was in that class. And there was one particular incident when a teacher reported me to the principal about my bad behavior. And I felt disrespected, so I ran in the staff room for her. And ran in the staff room I didn't get to hit her, but I was stopped. And then I ran into the principal office and pearl bottles, and that was the action. That was it. They said no, and they write to the Ministry of Education, and I was expelled.
But there's no fear of consequence.
No.
There's no fear of authority.
At this time, a name calling, because obviously I was rolling with some notorious men, and I was regarded as, finally, I thought, I earned my keep.
You are right.
Yeah, that is, don't come wrong Tizik.
What was so appealing about it? And what is so appealing? Because it's so easy for us to disconnect. We read about it in the news, and it's so easy for us to sit down wherever we are and say, but this don't make any sense. Why would boys in particular find this lifestyle so appealing when statistically it's crazy? What is it that was alluring?
Because at the core, Terry, a boy who has the potential to be a man, we want to be respected. And that's why when ladies, when wives and ladies choose to disrespect men, yes, we want to be loved, but the primary importance of a man is to be respected. So we want respect. We want to achieve a particular way. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted my name to be remembered in a particular way. I wanted the status. I wanted to be respected.
And how did that work out for you?
In retrospect, it turned out to be a good, but at the time, obviously, I was heading down a road of destruction to the point where I'm now expelled from school, running with a crew. And there was a particular incident, let me just say that I was heading to Port of Spain side, wearing my big jewelry, big medallion and gold band. And 2:00 in the day, some guys stop in the middle of the road, come out the car, and accosted us. And one of them put the gun on the left side of my shoulder. They came to rob us. And what he did, he hold on to my chain, and he pulled the chain, and I fell back because I was sitting down on the wall where we were. I was sitting on the wall where we were at. When he pulled the chain, I fell back. Thankfully, I did not pop my neck. So he got the chain already, and the man said, "Shoot him, boy, shoot him." No, the gun just went off because he bust the gun and pulled my chain. So when he pulled the chain, he got the chain, and the gun went off. When I was holding the left side of my shoulder, he said, "Boy, shoot him, man, boy." When he pulled the trigger again, the gun didn't go off. And I held my shoulder and I started running. No, when I run, the same guy who I was referring to, who groomed me, he said, "What happened to you, boy?" I said, "No, boy, I got shot. He said, "Boy, well, move your hand." When I didn't move my hand, it was just the flame and the gunpowder that burned my shoulder. So thankfully, I did not get the full brunt of the bullet.
And in that moment...
And I did not... And when he pulled the trigger again, the gun didn't go off. No, the gun just went off. But when he pulled the trigger again, the gun didn't go off. Terry, you hear what I'm saying?
And in that moment, are you realizing that there is more? There is more for you now.
Well, at that time, I wasn't thinking about that. I wasn't thinking about that time. Ever so often when I give that story, I said, yeah, God, you have a plan for me. You saved me, you protected me, you kept me alive for such a time as this. So yeah, it was a time where that I didn't give consideration for the next day. I would live in the moment, and all what was in the back of my mind is that I have to make sure to keep my name up
keep
there.
The respect.
Keep the respect.
Did you ever think of retaliation and revenge? How do you move from that moment, that incident?
There were times where we would go back. So it was war. So it was gang war. So the person who did that, we went back for them, and so there's a lot of individual stories. Of course, I can't go into detail, but yes, it was a spiraling effect. So you come for me, I come for you, and
everybody loses
throughout the whole escapade and the journey. Thankfully, I survived, and I'm still here today.
So then, of course, the big question, and one of the reasons why the show is even called Redirection, is the trajectory, the path that you thought was the right one for you, the best one. You had carved out a name for yourself, a reputation, all things were looking good. But then this is who you are today.
Right.
What were the defining moments, or what was the defining moment, or the person or persons? How did you transition from bad boy, rude boy, expel, if anybody even look at me a certain way, I'm ready to pop off, versus the man who is now using his story to inspire, to empower, and to prevent the same thing from happening to others? What happened?
So there was a altercation with another individual that I went for the individual in the east side of Trinidad. Now, at the time, I move around. As I said, I always move around with a cutlass, with a tree line. So when I saw the individual who I was warring with, I didn't even put the car into park. I put it into neutral, jump over the car, and I started dealing some chop. So I started chopping. And he hold on to the blade, and I told him, I said, "Listen, I say, see, today I'm going to kill you." And then what I did is, I pulled the blade. He was holding on to the blade. I pulled the blade, and it cut his hand. And while he was running away, I sing the cutlass in the back of his back. He ran in the police station. I was subsequently held for that and charged for malicious wounding.
How old were you at this time?
That was about 18, 19.
You're still
and
a child.
Out of that situation, I was charged malicious wounding. Now, my father, a well-known radio broadcaster, it was in the papers, DJ Son in court for malicious wounding. When I was in the court and I saw my mother crying, bags under her eyes, it was only then I said to myself, Ken, you need to stop. Something has to happen. And I did not know how to do it. At the time, I was with a girl, and I thought, well, I need to go to church, because she was always inviting me to go to her mother's church. And I took up the invitation to go to her church. And when I was in the church, the minister at the time was speaking everything that I was feeling on the inside. And at the end of the sermon, I was crying uncontrollably. Inasmuch when I closed my eyes, I was just seeing people not having a care in the world, and they were moving along, and there was this big cliff with fire underneath it, and they were unaware, and they were all eventually in the fire. And that vision and that experience caused me to change my life at that point in time. So obviously, it is not a instant change.
Correct.
It is progressive. So out of that, I started to go to church and serve the Lord. But you know, when you're in that life and then you start going a particular way, I could remember holding the Bible and feeling ashamed when they pass and they see me with that tizzy, you know, and I holding the Bible. So I said to myself, I wasn't ashamed to hold a gun in my waist or hold a gun. Why should I be ashamed of the word of God, right? Now, even while I was in church, before I was with the girl before I was with another young lady, I always like the bad girl, rude girl kind of thing.
That's
right?
what you're going to attract.
Right? And we were together for a time and we had ended our relationship. And then she was admitted to Cora Hospital. Now, for those who know Cora Hospital in Trinidad, they admit two types of patients for tuberculosis and HIV/AIDS. And she got terribly sick. And later on, I found out that she died from AIDS. And I was sexually active with her. And now I'm with a new girl, and I'm saying to myself, Lord,
What is this?
You know, what is this? You know, save me. And I said to myself, I prayed and asked God, I said, God, if you would spare me from this outcome, I said, anywhere I'm given an opportunity, I will use it for your honor and glory. And eventually I took a test and I was HIV negative. So I don't know whether God healed me or he prevented me from contracting AIDS, but we were sexually active without protection within the time frame, but I did not contract HIV/AIDS. And I said to God be the glory.
And you kept your promise?
And I kept my promise. Now every pulpit looks different. So God has strategically positioned me in a radio frequency that is widely listened to on the island. And as much as we operate within the secular, when people hear me, they would know that there's a spiritual significance and there's a tone of positivity and transformation.
And I think that is what I felt. I think that is what I felt when we had our conversation. We were speaking about the book. The book was simply the item that got me in the room with you.
Right.
But then we started speaking about just who we are and the importance of knowing our greatness and the power that we have, and that we can't be everything to everyone. And I can't remember what it is I said, but you said, repeat that one more time. And I think that is what I probably felt. The energy, the connection, because it felt as if you knew what you were talking about, not because you were repeating what you heard or what you read, but because you've been there.
Yeah.
You've been on the other side. I guess for me and many people watching, and you said it, you don't go, and even Christians, you don't go from being bad to being perfect.
No.
How did you manage the ugly part? I call it the uncomfortable part, where you're not fully on this side yet, and you might still have some desire to go back there.
Of course.
How did you manage? What is it that you probably had to actively do or not do in order to give you a fighting chance on the right side?
Right. So there's always a struggle between the two natures, and there are times that you will fall down and you will. And in the beginning, I felt bad because I'm an extreme person. So it's like if I'm doing something to the extreme. So I had to really kind of delve into the scriptures. But even in that, it took a time for that nature in that way to be redirected.
Yes.
Because the same energy and the same attention that I gave to crime and violent behavior, I'm now aggressive for betterment,
Yes.
for development, for restoration. That you could start one way, but you can be something else who God has designed you and created you to be. So my energy was just redirected. So if I'm dealing with young people and you see the troublemaker, the one who say, listen, that one is gives a lot of trouble. I
Not
know that,
going to be anything.
That one is the prime candidate to do something great. It's something that gradually over time is just to give yourself time and be patient, knowing that it is not going to happen overnight.
How do you deal, or how did you deal or cope with guilt? Guilt. We're moving to be the better version of ourselves, trying to be the better man. But we know that we can't right all the wrongs we've done. And a lot of people find it very hard. You see how you said be patient with yourself, but there are people who struggle with guilt because the past is still behind them.
Right.
How did you manage to reconcile with yourself for all the things, the pain, the hurt, the loss that you might have caused, not just to enemies, but also your parents?
Yeah. Funny you say that, right? Because there was a period where I felt, why did I do that? I'm sorry. I should not have done that. But it was those experiences, a collection of those scenarios and experiences that have caused me to be the person that I am today. So I had to go through that in order for me to be who I am today. And I had to speak to God and say, God, thank you for protecting me. Thank you for keeping me. And I know that you have forgiven me. And I had to reassure myself that, I am forgiven. And I'm hoping that those who have wronged in my journey, that they would forgive me too as well. So it takes time. And I always tell people that if you feel a particular way, sometimes there's a particular incident that keeps repeating in your mind over and over again. And you ask yourself why you're up at night and you can't sleep because you feel guilty. You're too hard on yourself. Just know that God has your life in his hand, and all you have to do is just
Let him be.
let it go and let him be.
It's always said, or it's believed, and it has been, portrayed in movies, that whenever we have gang members leave a gang, leave a group, decide to go on to do different things, it's never easy to leave because they say the gangs just will not allow you to leave. What was that process like when, one, people will still label you according to who you were,
Right.
even though you are moving on and you have moved on? The fact that Tizik was the name that most people knew you for, how did you deal with, and did you even experience where people still labeled you as the one thing they knew you were in the past? And even the gentleman who groomed you and the guys who you used to run with, like, what is that dynamic, or what was the dynamic like? And did you fear that having left the group?
Well, thankfully at that dispensation, it was easier to leave than now. Now is different. So it was easier to leave. I got some backlash, yes. And there were people who still had it out for me, but thankfully they did not reach me. And I really had to ask God to hide and protect me. I was not venturing outside, as it were. It was a different circle. And for me, I had to give myself time and be very careful how I trod, because obviously they would be like, okay, so if they attack me now, should I respond in kind, or should I turn the other cheek?
Which nature do you yield?
Right. I don't take disrespect, but then I'm learning something new now from what I knew before. So you just have to trust the process, but you have to be deliberate and intentional, because if you don't do that, you will easily fall back into the nature that you're accustomed to. So it takes time. And I tell people is that nobody does anything without giving them an adequate motive. Nobody does anything without giving them an adequate motive. And that day when I saw my mother in the court and I looked at her and she looked like she was on her last. She didn't know what to do.
You probably didn't even recognize me.
I felt a soft spot for her, and it caused me now to do something to change. So when I felt that I wanted to go back into that nature, I always remember how my mother looked and how I made her feel at that moment. No, she was feeling that way before, but it was something about that moment that caused me to start the process of looking in a different direction. So you say the guilt, how people, would view you. There are people who told me, don't tell certain stories because it wouldn't be invited in particular circles. You would be frowned upon. You would be looked upon a particular way. But it is those stories that has shaped me and molded me today. And there are many instances that I could have been there. There are many other stories that time would not permit. But that is why I know that I have purpose. And that is why I know you, regardless of what you are going through. It may not be my story. Obviously, it's not my story, but everyone has a story.
Correct.
And you are here for a particular purpose. And it will do you well to discover that purpose by just looking within. I had to spend a lot of time alone, Terry. I had to look within. And, you hear people say that and you want to know, what does that really mean?
Correct. And it may mean different things to different people.
No, alone does not mean lonely. So for me, I respect and value my solitude, my alone time.
Yes.
And it's within your alone time you get to know yourself and confidence builds. Because you get to spend time with yourself and be happy with yourself.
And there's nothing wrong with it. I think the world is noisy. There are 3 million things that are distracting us every single day. There are people who are afraid of quiet time. They are afraid of silence. And it's because some people are afraid to sit with the truth.
Yeah.
A lot of them are afraid to confront what they would have to confront with by sitting with themselves. But there is a maturity to that.
Yeah.
There is a self-awareness. There is a desire to know more in order to do more and to be more. And it takes a lot of courage. Did you ever sit down with mommy and apologize?
Yes, I did.
That was a big sigh. That was a...
Yeah, no, because the apology came from, not to say, oh, mommy, I'm sorry for what I did. Based on my actions and my direction now, I told her, I said, I'm happy that you are proud of me. She said that she was proud of me, my dad too as well, because I caused a lot of shame and embarrassment. So they are proud of me. And I'm happy that now within their latter years, they can watch me, they can see me and say, you know what, I'm happy with my son.
And how do you balance now, you are a speaker. I mean, I know right now I'm probably going to get a lot of messages after this episode. He's so eloquent, he's so articulate, he's so confident, he's so calm. In the entertainment industry, and we both work in the same space, the same sphere. As a Christian, this question now is going to be from a Christian standpoint, where it almost feels we can't always control our everything that's happening around us. You're in radio, you host events, how easy, how hard is it for you to balance between the secular and the Christian?
Right. So I'm not religious. I understand that I have a function and a work to do. I operate within the secular. So if you know me and you follow me, I have real vibes. So I can
true.
I can relate to corporate.
Yes.
I've done a lot of corporate events, from hosting the Prime Minister events, governmental, to big concerts and boat
festivals
rides and festivals and all that. So I do me. So I express myself who I am. But just like any actor on the stage, if you're watching your favorite movie and you're seeing an actor do certain things, and you would say you wouldn't necessarily associate them with who they are at the core. So I do a lot of things, and I give people based on who I am and be authentic, because I believe that authenticity is the highest frequency. Just be yourself.
Yes.
When you are yourself, if you're true to yourself, you can't be false to anybody. So I love to enjoy myself. I love my reggae. I do a reggae program on my radio station. I love soca. I love to dance. I love to wine. Right? There is no shame in that. Right? I take care of myself, and for me, I just be me. Now, for someone who is within the four walls and operate from a doctrinal point of view, they may say, oh, you're a hypocrite.
Correct.
Right? But God has blessed me with gifts and talents. And as I mentioned earlier on, every pulpit looks different. And and my mission and my goal is not necessarily for you. I'm here to go into the trenches.
Yes.
To go to individuals who some of you may be afraid to go on trot. Now, I'll tell you this. I had the opportunity to work with a gentleman by the name of Wayne Chance. Now,
Yes.
he has a non-profitable organization called Vision and Mission. So what the organization does is to help rehabilitate and reintegrate prisoners, because he himself was a prisoner.
Yes.
And I had the opportunity to speak in every prison in Trinidad, including the women's prison and Carrera Island. Convicted men and women, some on death row and life sentences. And that, my experiences have caused me to
Have a platform
have a
such as that.
platform
Yes.
such as that. So the traditional churchgoer they may not necessarily be afraid to go there, but they may not be able to relate to those who are incarcerated.
Correct.
So for me, yeah, it's all about connection and to be able to relate. And
sometimes you have to know how to meet people where they are.
Exactly.
And so a lot of us may have a lot of information and theory, and we can instruct, but it's very different when someone can speak the same language, can have the same understanding because they've walked the walk.
That's right. I remember in Carrera Island, I was giving one of the incidents, the stories about one of my episodes, and the gentleman who I was referring to, he was actually in the yard, in the big courtyard. And when I finished, he came up to me because I haven't seen him in years, and he was verifying what I was saying was true. So I said, God, you have done all of this to allow me to have a listening ear among those who society has forgotten.
Ostracized.
And ostracized.
And will continue to shame even after time is done and they try to integrate in society, which is the same question that I asked about people constantly labeling and holding that big stick over you, reminding you of who you once were.
You can't tell me, nobody can tell me that I don't love God. I talk to him every day. So again, you say, well, you're hypocrite, you don't do these certain things. No, I just believe that there's a generation that is unconventional who is getting the work done and letting their light shine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
And I think one of the takeaways for me is that whether you are in a secular space or not, once you are always governed by your principles and you're governed by your values, then that will always shine through, no matter where it is you go.
Yeah.
Of all the things that you've experienced, the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, what would you say is your most priceless moment?
Priceless moment.
Your most priceless moment.
So in 2012, my partner, my brethren, we were preparing to go on the road for Carnival in 2023. And I said, but we had to get abs on the road. No, listen, hear me out. I'm going somewhere with this story. I said, we had to get abs on the road. I said, we had to look good on the road. All right. So there we started to pay attention to what we eat, and we gym regularly. And I just want to say that I did achieve the abs.
All right.
Right.
We're still waiting on Alex's.
In 2013. And out of that experience, the gym I attended at the time, the owner said, you know what, why don't you not enter a bodybuilding competition? There's a category called men's physique. Why don't you enter that? Is more of a model type finish, a beach body finish.
Yes.
And no, I was already preparing, and I said, because to get the abs, and I took the challenge to enter that competition, the National Bodybuilding and Fitness Championships. And that competition was held in June in 2013.
Yes.
I entered the competition and I came second in the country.
What are you saying?
I came second in the country. But not only that, that was the junior championships. Then 2 months after, I entered the senior championships. I came second again, and I qualified to be on the Trinidad and Tobago team to represent at the Central American and Caribbean Bodybuilding Fitness Championships. So in 2013, I had an opportunity to represent Trinidad and Tobago in the sport of bodybuilding in the men's physique category. And in Santo Domingo, that is where it was held at that time. I was sitting among my peers and other athletes from the region with the Trinidad and Tobago tracksuit. And I said to myself, never in a million years I would think I representing the country at any level, far less for health and fitness, for in bodybuilding. And I felt good. No, I didn't pass the first round, right? I didn't pass the first round. But no, I'm telling you, we're hearing them calling my name and walking across that stage, and I did my poses and all that. There was a sense of pride. And I said, God, you are good. It's through those experiences and that season, that dispensation in my life, I learned discipline. And I really understood that life is what you make it.
I hear that.
Terry, life is what you make it. I never thought I would. And I felt good. For me, that was a priceless moment because I had on the Trinidad and Tobago tracksuit. We took the pictures in the airport. And I said, but this is real.
And this feels good.
It feels good because somebody was expelled from school. They tried to kill me so many different times. I could have died with HIV, AIDS. And look at you. God, look at you.
I think what is even more interesting in that story is it was also another redirection. There are always these helpers, right? These destiny helpers, whatever we want to call them. People who say, give it a go. And they drop a seed, and it's really for us to decide whether we want to water that seed or not. You could have walked away.
I could have.
You could have said, you're mad, man. I'm just trying to get ready for carnival.
Yeah.
That's my goal. I don't know what you're trying to introduce this new thing to. I'm not ready. I'm not qualified. These guys are bigger, more experienced. You could have come up with 3 million excuses not to do it.
That's right.
But you decided to water the seed. And this is what we've been trying to tell people. There are so many avenues that still are going to get you where you're supposed to be. And sometimes it's faith over fear. Sometimes it takes you betting on yourself and doing the unthinkable, the unimaginable, that you could not even sit down and consider yourself to do. And then you could be representing your country.
Look at that.
That is nice. After we finish the show, I'm going to ask you to just give us your plan so that we can share it with Alex and the rest of the crew. Tony's laughing. I don't know why Tony laughing, because I'm going to share it with Tony as well. My final question for you, and I've enjoyed this conversation so much because of your honesty, your transparency, as well as your depth. And you are someone who epitomizes redirection in many ways. And as you said, there's so many other individual stories and experiences. But if you had the opportunity to define redirection, especially what it has done for you, what would that definition be?
Redirection is letting go of your preconceived idea of how it should be done and allowing for that is within you to naturally flow out. Now, within all of us, there's a hidden treasure. There's a treasure inside all of us. And it is our responsibility to find that treasure. And that treasure and that journey is not external, it's within. And when we look within, you will find that the adjustments outwardly comes naturally.
That's your definition.
Yeah.
My darling Ken Simmons, it was a pleasure meeting you 2 years ago in your studio. It is a pleasure, it's an honor really, to have you come to Jamaica for the very first time. For the first time.
Listen,
and to even be the vehicle.
I want some ackee and saltfish, I want some peas and rice, I want some jerk
so
fish.
Hold on, we say rice and peas in Jamaica.
Oh shucks, rice and peas.
And you're going to go to Hellshaw.
Yes,
and we're going to take care of you.
Yes.
And I'm so happy that Redirection with Terri-Karelle was the conduit
yes.
for you coming to Jamaica.
Yes.
And it is my hope, even as we have season 4, season 5, that we'll be able to bring more stories from the Caribbean, because there are more stories outside of Jamaica that we know can relate to us as a Caribbean people
Yes, yes,
and the
indeed.
diaspora.
Yes.
So we thank you for the work that you do, and we certainly hope that even coming out of this conversation, more people will come to know you, more people will reach out to you, so that your work is not just in any one space, but that it goes to the 4 corners of the earth.
Thank you.
Thank you for honoring me with your company.
Thank you for having me.
So happy for the man you've allowed yourself, you've chosen to become. Proud of you.
Thank you.
My goodness.
Thank you, Terry.
I already know. You guys are going to send me direct messages. You're going to send me comments. You're going to send me reviews. And I appreciate it. Let me know what you thought about this particular episode of Redirection. And if you know that there is someone, especially at a time as this, where we are losing our boys. Really, we're talking a lot about the empowerment of our girls, which is absolutely important, but we need our boys and our girls to walk hand in hand. And so if you know of any boys, any young man, any men who you think might absolutely benefit from this episode, go ahead, don't be stingy, share, comment, like, review, and I will see you next week on another episode of Redirection with Terri-Karelle. Thank you to our partners, MasterCard, Heineken 00, Toyota Jamaica, Commercial Concepts, Spaces Jamaica, FHC Credit Union, Beauty Brands by MDS, Go Shore Couriers, and Brescia.